Fallout is an American post-apocalyptic series created by Graham Wagner and Geneva Robertson Dworet for Amazon Prime Video, and it's based on the video game franchise of the same name. Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, known for their collaboration on Westworld, serve as producers, with Nolan directing the first 3 episodes. Now, I easily binge-watched this series as all 8 episodes were available to watch on Amazon on April 10th. Upon seeing the trailer, I was absolutely blown away by the stunning visuals. The mid-century modern aesthetic holds a special appeal to me. It's been increasingly prevalent in interior design lately, and some of the shows I've reviewed, like Apple's Severance and Silo, as well as the TVA and Marvel's Loki, fully embrace it. The retro-futuristic vibe, reminiscent of Hanna-Barbera's The Jetsons, immediately brought to mind Hello Tomorrow, also available on Apple TV+. Before seeing some mentions on social media and the trailer for Fallout, I hadn't heard of it. If you watch my channel, you'll know that I don't play video games, so I'm looking at this show as a show watcher only. Now, I am familiar with Nolan's work on HBO's Westworld, and in my research on that show, I know that he plays games and is a big fan of the Fallout game franchise, so I had pretty high expectations for the show. Fallout game producer Timothy Kane said that he took inspiration when creating Fallout 1 and 2 from movies such as The Road Warrior, City of Lost Children, and A Boy and His Dog, which I had to look up as it's a lesser-known sci-fi comedy from 1975 starring Don Johnson. Now, stick around if you want to learn more about the costumes and some of my thoughts, but warning, there might be some spoilers for all 8 episodes of the show. Additionally, I should warn you that there will be several times when watching the show that I thought of Game of Thrones, so apologies if you don't know the show or understand my references. And if you want to skip ahead at any point, I've added chapters. Amy Westcott, the costume designer for Season 1 of Fallout, is a highly regarded figure in the industry. She's renowned for her work on critically acclaimed movies like Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler and Black Swan, the latter earning her a Costume Designers Guild Award. Her impressive portfolio also includes Nightcrawler and, more recently, The Menu. And if you haven't seen The Menu yet, I highly recommend it. Additionally, Westcott has made her mark in television, contributing to one of my personal favorites, Season 1 of The OA. As I was viewing this as a show watcher only, I was a little confused about the timelines. Because my usual focus is on the costumes, I thought that based on the outfits worn at the birthday party, the architecture and decor, and the lack of tech, the setting took place in the 1950s, not understanding that this is an alternative reality in 2077. And it wasn't until I went back to watch the first episode again that I noticed the buildings in the background. While I think this show is very enjoyable if you are not a game player, unfortunately for me, I was looking at it all wrong. So this is just a small quibble, but it would have been very helpful if they had had a title card with the year, so I didn't have to do a Google search to figure it out. Throughout this video, I will feature costume illustrations by Brian Valenzuela, based upon Westcott's designs, and I will mention some of the makers on the show as I go along, but you will also be able to find their socials in the description below if you want to check out their work. When designing the costumes for Fallout, Amy Westcott tells Filmfare, "It was very clear that the video game was the construct and the skeleton, and then we were to create around it. There were the Fallout game rules that we stuck to. There was no plastic in this time period, but there was duct tape." With a wardrobe department member well-versed in the game's intricacies akin to a Fallout consultant, Westcott said that attention to detail was paramount. Regardless of prominence on screen, every element had to be impeccable to fulfill Jonathan Nolan's vision. Westcott said it was really important to hear his take on everything and then interpret and build from that. It was a really close collaboration. Now let's dig in a bit more deeply about the costumes. The Brotherhood of Steel. The Brotherhood of Steel appears to be a religious order mashed up with a military operation. Jonathan Nolan said in an interview, "It's a little bit of the Marine Corps. It's a little bit of the Knights Templar. It's this kind of weird fusion." The uniforms worn by the Brotherhood cadets look like your typical army fatigues, consisting of a white tee, gray-green cargo pants, and black army boots. and then in lieu of dog tags, each cadet wears a charm. When I first saw the colors of the clerics dressed in red and black vestments, I first thought of the house colors of the Targaryens in Game of Thrones. Elder Cleric Quintus even wears a chain around his neck, bringing to my mind the Maesters, another Game of Thrones reference. Monks in chains have been found in grave finds, with the custom of wearing chains a well-known method of self-castigation. According to Fallout lore, the chain is also symbolic of the chain of command, a policy referred to by the Brotherhood as the chain that binds, with the order held together by links, with each one supporting the next link. Keeping with the palette, the knights dress in maroon under-armor jumpsuits, while the squires, like Maximus and Thaddeus, wear black two-piece uniforms with red shirts underneath. There's even a scene where Elder Cleric Quintus questions Maximus when he presents a severed head, asking why he is dressed in the knight's red. And then the squire costume illustration shows that they were looking at some kind of camouflage print at some point, but it appears that they went with a solid black instead. Custom denim and leather maker Jimmy McBride writes on Instagram that he made the hero jumpsuits worn by Aaron Moten as Maximus out of twill and leather, as well as 2 interlinking skull caps. Multiples were required by production. And while macabre and bleak at times, the show is also slap-your-knee funny. One scene for me was watching the squires carry this enormous knight's bag with all of their gear, which immediately made me think of a golf caddy carrying an oversized golf bag. The T-60 power armor worn by the knights stands as the most crucial costume element within the Brotherhood. Upon initial observation of the trailer, I thought the helms of the knights appeared reminiscent of those worn by Imperial stormtroopers. I saw another mention that it was possibly inspired by the armor worn by a killer robot in 1995's Digital Man, and it's possible that the game designers were also inspired by early 20th century diving suits, like this example from 1911. The gears, which represent the Brotherhood's engineering knowledge and are represented in their iconography or sigil of gears, a sword, and wings, are also featured prominently on the suit. And I also thought that the shape looked like the vault doors. Howard Cummings, the production designer who collaborated with Nolan on Westworld, brought practical effects expertise gained from crafting the drone house from the Westworld series. Cummings revealed to the gamer that the production team decided early on to minimize the use of CGI, opting instead for a practical costume solution that not only mirrored authenticity but also functioned seamlessly in the real-life scenarios. Cummings stated that the company enlisted was Legacy Effects, known for its work on projects such as Iron Man. However, they had not previously created a suit as functional as the one needed for this particular project. They created a version that the actor could wear, but then a stuntman was utilized for some of the other suits. Nolan said that stuntman Adam Shipley was one particularly talented performer with the stuntman and suit working in concert with one another. Cummings said he realized the team had figured it out when he spotted that same stuntman dancing in his power armor between takes. If you are new to the channel and are enjoying this content, please consider subscribing. If you'd like to support me so that I can continue creating content, I've created a Patreon with 4 different levels. If you want to check it out, the link is in my description. Thank you to my current patrons for your support. The Vault Dwellers. When I first watched the trailer, it was the cobalt blue coveralls worn by the Vault Dwellers that really stood out to me and have since become my favorite costume. Westcott tells Mara Station that the Vault jumpsuit presented the most challenging details because it's so widely recognized by all. Its iconic status demanded a seamless transition into a tangible entity, embodying both functionality and believability. Every intricate detail, every applied piece had to be faithfully represented. You can see that many of the details depicted in the games are carried over into the costume. Check out some of the early concepts for the Vault Dweller uniforms by Bethesda. I was pleased to see, however, that they didn't make the entire suit out of leather, but a combination of leather and twill, like the knight's underarmor. Additionally, they went for a more relaxed look, which is flattering on all sizes and for all ages, as opposed to the body-skimming silhouette featured in the game. Westcott explains that there were practical reasons behind it too. The vault suit is typically viewed in a 2D format during gameplay, yet it necessitates functionality in the real world. It was imperative that the garment not only accommodate the actor's movements, but also reverted to its original shape afterward. Extensive experimentation and prototyping were conducted to determine the fabric's flexibility and resilience thresholds. Given that actors wore the suit for prolonged periods, comfort and functionality were paramount considerations. And the actors chimed in on their appreciation for their costumes, given that they would wear them for such extensive periods. Rodrigo Luzzi, who plays Vault Dweller Reg, said of his costume, "You know what? It was a little comforting because you didn't think about that. You didn't have to worry about it, so you put it on once and then you're like, all right, this is what I'm going to be living in." You got used to it. It was really comfortable. Now, for the color, my impression of the yellow and blue worn by the Vault Dwellers, and also colors of Vault-Tec, is akin to superhero colors. I did think that blue might have come from the 13 or 14-star American flag, given that the Brotherhood are using the red for their flag, but the flag blue appears to be a bit darker than the suits. Westcott said that the blue of the Vault suit was the Bethesda blue, so we had to get the exact Pantone color, which is no easy feat to get it dyed. They were happy with it. They approved it. There was a lot of art that was used in the game and the numbers on the back that was all straight from the game and was given to us as reference. Now I'll add that the blue looks beautiful in different lighting conditions in the vault or against the desert wasteland. At times it appears purple in some settings in the vault and more to the teal at dusk in the wasteland. And I appreciated the industrial gold zippers and the use of gold fabric, which upon first view I thought was suede, instead of that shiny gold leather for the accents as we see in the games. And while at first glance the Vaulter costumes might appear brand spanking new, Westcott says that all items underwent aging processes, meticulously handled by her exceptional textile department. She said that their expertise was akin to wizardry in rendering everything with a realistic appearance. A friend of the channel, Jeff Churchill, owner of Jitterbug Boy, writes on Instagram that his shop created Vault Dweller brown leather boots for the leads and coordinated with a factory in Mexico to make all the background boots to their specs under a very tight timeline. Lucy MacLean's costume gets the most trashed throughout the season. At times she's covered in dirt and blood, and there are buckets full of it in the show. I can only imagine how many multiples she would require. I like the idea that the vaulters never take off their coveralls during moments of hard work and that they will just unzip their coveralls and tie the sleeves around their waist, revealing a Vault-Tec issued white singlet. In a pivotal moment, Lucy adds shoulder armor in the wasteland, which I thought was reminiscent of Daenerys Targaryen's attire in the Red Waste during Season 2 of Game of Thrones. A non-coverall costume in Vault 33 is the white wedding dress worn by multiple brides, as each of them has written their names in the lining over the past 2 centuries. At one point, Lucy says that the dress is too tight, likely because it has never been altered to fit the bride-to-be. The fit and flare style of the 1950s dress and veil appears to take inspiration from Audrey Hepburn's dress in Funny Face, a musical comedy from 1957. Midge's dress in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was also based on this iconic costume. And I'll add that the arranged marriage between Lucy and a supposed dweller from Vault 32 can help to bring to mind the marriage between Edmure Tully and Rosalind Frey. In the aftermath of Lucy's wedding to the Raider, a bloody massacre ensues like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. However, a very capable Lucy is front and center in defending her vault. Cooper Howard and the Ghoul. We're introduced to Hollywood Western actor Cooper Howard on the day of the Great War, along with his daughter Janey. Cooper and Janey are dressed in matching outfits while working at a children's cowboy-themed birthday party, with the children dressed in typical cowboy outfits from the 1950s. Cooper had originally worn this cowboy outfit costume while filming The Man from Dead Horse. Actor Walter Goggins, whose performance in the show is incredible, said he drew inspiration from classic westerns, like the films of John Wayne and Clint Eastwood. However, you can also spot costume inspirations from other 1950s Hollywood actors, such as Roy Rogers and Gary Cooper, who likely inspired the character's name. You might notice that Cooper's blue shirt with the gold fringe is the same color as the vault suits. While on set dressed in this costume, his wife Barb Howard, a high-ranking Vault Tech executive, insists that he do her a solid and work as a spokesperson for the company brand. Appearing in a Vault suit for a promotional photo, Cooper gives the thumbs up, which later would become the branding for Vault Boy, Vault Tech's corporate mascot. Outside of work, Cooper's wardrobe echoes the timeless style of Hollywood icons from the 1950s like Cary Grant, Paul Newman, and Steve McQueen. Meanwhile, Barb opts for feminine silhouettes and soft, muted tones in silk reminiscent of 1950s fashion, subtly downplaying her power. However, the addition of the Pip-Boy wearable computer stands out starkly against her vintage attire, hair, and makeup. Appearing in television advertisements promoting vault spaces, Cooper sports a sleek sharkskin single-breasted suit paired with a skinny tie. Despite the name, sharkskin suits are made from smooth worsted fabric and blended wool with silk shantung. However, artificial sharkskin variants for suiting emerged in the 1950s. Cooper's necktie, meanwhile, has a subtle motif that I thought looked like a lightning bolt sigil from the game. Now back to Coop's cowboy outfit. His shirts were made by Carl Goldberg's New York-based shirt maker to the stars, while the machine embroidery on the yoke and cuffs was by Jimmy McBride. If you zoom in, you'll see that the embroidery on both Cooper's and Janey's shirts feature a scorpion. While the scorpion can have a variety of meanings, in some cultures it's the symbol of death or dying, in others it's reproduction, and still in others it can be defensiveness or solitude. Cooper's striped brown pants were also made by Jimmy McBride and his cowboy boots by Jitterbug Boy. Jeff Churchill tells me that they made 5 pairs for Walton Goggins and another 5 pair for the stunts. Now that brings me to Cooper's transition from Hollywood actor to the Ghoul. On the day of the Great War, Cooper escapes with Janey on horseback, and we don't meet up with him again until more than 200 years into the future, when he has become the Ghoul. I suspect that in Season 2 we will get some flashbacks to fill in the backstory of what he did after the bombs were dropped. Now, if you look closely, you'll see that the Ghoul is still dressed in his cowboy costume, although it is heavily distressed, almost mummified on his body. His Stetson-style Western hat was originally creamy white and is now a weathered brown color. Along the way, the bounty hunter acquired a patented leather vest, a duster coat with a hem torn to shreds, and a bandolier like the one worn by Mexican revolutionary Francisco Pancho Villa. Here's an example of dusters from Sergio Leone's 1968 Once Upon a Time in the West. To have the practical makeup effects applied by FX makeup artist Jake Garber, Walton Goggins said on Instagram that he sat in the makeup chair for up to 5 hours each shooting day, but they got it down to 1 hour 45 to 2 hours 15 minutes, depending on the movie they were watching. Because the prosthetics covering his entire head, neck, and upper body were thought to hinder Walton's facial expressions, the actor said in an interview that they chose not to use contacts so that all of his expressions could come from his eyes. And I couldn't help but see the Ghoul, looking like a burn victim who takes a doe-eyed Lucy captive intending to sell her, bring to mind Sandor Clegane, otherwise known as the Hound, and Arya Stark on their side quest in Game of Thrones. I'm looking forward to seeing Fallout Season 2, which has been confirmed by Amazon Studios. Let me know in the comments your favorite Fallout costumes. In the meantime, you can check out our Fallout Season 1 live stream and roundup. As always, thank you for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.